We sold this property for $1,885,000. Again, we bought it for $990, so we doubled the value of the property in a year and a half. Hey guys, I sold one of my self-storage facilities today. It was in Lake Placid, Florida. We doubled the value of this property in just under 2 years. Great deal for us. I'm gonna go over this deal from beginning to end, tell you all about the property, how we purchased the property, added value, how we funded the deal, what we profited on it, and what our investor made on it as well. So let's get right into it. So this property is in Lake Placid, Florida. As you look here on this aerial shot, you'll see that what we look for a lot in self-storage deals is add value. On most commercial deals, you're looking for add value opportunity. In this deal, when I just look at the aerial and this property is fenced all around, you don't see any room for expansion. So when we talking to the seller about this property, and we found this property through direct mail. So we advertise through sending letters to sellers. This is actually the third self-storage property we purchased. We actually own another property very close by in Sebring, Florida. From sending mail pieces every single month to sellers in Florida, this gentleman, once he saw one of our letters with the new brand, All Steel Storage, that's what we called our first property in Sebring, and he saw that as he drove by, he's like, oh, I got a letter from these guys. They own this property over here down the road. I'm interested in selling now. Let me give them a call. So the one tip is to always be consistent with marketing, always be top of mind, always be marketing, whether it's direct mail, cold calling, SMS. You want to be out there getting top of mind for sellers. So this gentleman got our postcard, our letter piece, and with our branding, and he gave us a call. We discussed this property with him. He was ready to retire. He built this property. He was running it. He had a guy actually living on property helping him out, but he had this property where he was really, handling the day-to-day and the management of this property. So a couple things with this for our add value, after we talked with him on this deal and collected his financials, collected a rent roll, collected his profit and loss statements for the last 2 years, so we can actually see what the income was each month, what his expenses were, and what he was netting each month, his net operating income. So once we got those numbers and we can see where we could add value ourselves, whether it's increasing rents, decreasing expenses, increasing the occupancy of the property, we saw that he had several people who had very high discounted rates on his units or not paying at all. And so after discussing with him the property and why he wanted to sell, what he was going to do after he sold the property, his goal was to retire. He said, I've been handling this property for 20 years. I want to go travel and do things. So we tried a creative deal because we're creative investors, but he wanted his cash. He didn't want to do anything creative. He wanted to sell outright. So we agreed on a price of $990,000. This property did need a little bit of work, not too much CapEx. CapEx is capital expenditures. These are typically one-time costs you're going to pay on the property for major repairs. For us on this property, it needed roofs. So if you look at the photo again, you'll see it has those nice white bright roofs. Before that, it didn't look like that. It was more rusty. This is right before we sold the property. This is the photo we used for the brokers, but the property needed a lot of tree work. As you see, the trees already started growing over again, but we had tremendous amount of tree work, and we had to redo the roofs. We had to replace the gate operations, a couple doors, and that was pretty much it. We raised a little bit over what we actually needed because we want to have some money in reserves in case things happen to the property. We need extra capital for repairs. So we purchased the property with a loan from a local credit union where they funded $695,000 of this purchase price. And then we raised from a private individual lender, a limited partner, someone who just puts up money and doesn't really handle any of the day-to-day. They are called a limited partner is the money person. And then we are the GP, a general partner, and we're doing the work. We're doing the management of the property. We're handling the acquisition, the disposition, everything from A to Z of the property. Besides the money, that's our job as a general partners. So limited partners put in $500,000. For $500,000, they were getting an 8% preferred interest payment. That means they were getting paid the 8% first. Before any of the profits were split, they were getting 8%. So on this deal, a lot of times when raising funds and doing these types of deals, you'll get an acquisition fee. On this deal, we didn't charge an acquisition fee, and we actually didn't take any cash flow payments on this deal. We were trying to put everything back into the property to maximize it as quick as possible and then sell it as we just did. So on this property, the only person really making money each month was our preferred investor. So they were getting 8% payment every single month, every 15th of the month, like clockwork. And so for a year, they're making $40K. 8%. And so for us, we weren't making anything truly on the GP side. We were getting a 1K management fee each month, and all other cash flow stayed into the account until we just sold. And so what this deal looked like when we first bought it, we bought it from the seller who was 79% occupied. That means they had 20% vacant units, but the economic occupancy was 75.9%, a little bit less. That means that not everybody was paying the market rent that he was charging. And so for the gross income each month, it was $7,500, $7,600 per month. So based on our negotiation with him, we were trying to get it for around 800, 900, but he really wanted $1 million. We settled at 990. So at 990, it still made sense for us because there was a lot of add value that was very easily able to be realized. So because all we simply did was he was using about 6 or 7 units for himself that wasn't being charged rent. It was on the rent roll as like owner unit, and some of them were big units. He had like 10 by 30s, 10 by 20s that he was utilizing. So once he was able to move out at closing, we were able to rent those spots up pretty easily. And because we also had another facility right down the street, we utilized that same manager to run this facility at a much reduced expense each month on the payroll. So instead of what we typically do is charge $1,000 a month, we pay $1,000 a month for our property managers. On this property, we just paid an additional $500 a month because there was no office on site. He just had to pop in. It was very close and a very easy deal to manage. We were able to leverage our marketing in Sebring and also push some people when we were full in Sebring to our Lake Placid location. So essentially when we bought this property, we just increased some marketing, added more signage, put signs on the fence. This was on a major highway. So we were able to show that we were looking for rentals because we were advertising, and we started doing SEO marketing, which is search engine optimization. So we just hired a company to do that. We use automation. We use Easy Storage Solutions for their software and their gate automations. So that way we can essentially book units online with somebody just going through their phone. They didn't have to actually speak to a manager. They can literally just book online, get access to the gate and their unit simply on the phone with never having to talk to anybody. Utilizing this, which is what was allowing us to not have to hire a full-time person, but just add on some responsibilities to our current manager in Sebring. So over about a year and a half, we were able to increase the income from $7,600 a month to $15,000 per month. We increased the occupancy to 95%. We also increased the economic occupancy, but there was still some room for our new buyer to get everybody up to market rent. A little bit of room there. There wasn't really any other add value for us to do. Besides getting everybody to market rent, the property was pretty stabilized. So at this point in time, we were looking at our return on equity. So essentially this year we would have started taking cash flow because it has been a stabilized property, and we probably would have been making about on the GP side. So on this preferred interest payment here for the private lender for putting up 500 grand, they got 30% equity. So they own 30% of this deal. So not only do they get 8% interest payments, but they're owned 30% of the deal. In the GP side, we own 70%. So if we were to do distributions based on our income after paying out the preferred interest payment and after paying debt service, essentially we were making like $36,000 a year, roughly about $3,000 a month. And so if we did take those disbursements on the LP side, we would roughly make like 25 grand, something like that. And so if we sold the property, we'd make close to 500 grand. And so for us, looking at the numbers, we realized that's only like a 5% return. So if we could sell the property, take those 500 grand, redeploy it, could we make more than 5%? And the answer is yes, because we know how to find good deals. We know how to structure creative deals. And typically on a lot of our properties, we can make 20% IRRs plus. So on this property, we decided to sell it. So we listed it with a broker, and we sold this property along with our Sebring property, and we're gonna do another case study on that. So on this property, we added the value, and now we contracted a buyer and we're ready to sell it. And we sold this to a 1031 buyer. 1031 buyer is somebody who sold a previous property. They didn't realize any of that money. They didn't take it into their bank account. They left it with a 1031 custodian, and they immediately moved that money to another property to avoid or delay paying taxes on that to Uncle Sam. So a lot of 1031 buyers want to buy stuff that's either stabilized or has also add value. So on this deal, it's more stabilized property. And so we sold this property for $1,885,000. Again, we bought it for $990, so we double the property in a year and a half, to double the value of the property in a year and a half. We had some closing costs, tax prorations, which is just our portion of taxes from January 1st to February 28th, our close date. Rent prorations, we closed on February 20, it's supposed to be 27th, but we actually closed the 28th. So there's some rent prorations, not much. A pro tip, you should definitely want to close on the 7th through the 15th of the month. The reason being is the old seller, the previous owner, is collecting all that rent, and then at closing, if you close on the 7th or the 10th, they owe you 23 days or 20 days of rent. So they might collect, so we're working on a future deal that's $70K a month. So $70K a month, if he owes me 20 days of rent, that's a third of the property, a third of that rent payment. It's a large chunk that gets a credit to me at closing, and that's less money I have to bring to the table at closing. So it's always good actually let them collect the rent in the beginning of the month and close around the 7th or 10th. That's definitely a tip you should always implement. So there was commissions we paid to a broker, 2%. We did charge a disposition fee. So the GP charged a disposition fee for handling the sale. It was a lot of work to get the property ready for a sale, to gather all the info for the buyer, meet the buyer out there, gathering all the due diligence docs for them, and literally facilitating this to close and making sure it did get closed. So we charged a 2% fee there. So we made $37,700 on that disposition fee. We paid off our mortgage of $661. So in a year and a half, we paid off about $30K of the mortgage. We had no prepayment penalty, and we had to obviously pay back our investor her $500K that she invested. And then we had deferred payments of the 8%. So between February 4th and February 28th, we owed the investor 8% for those days. So she got a payment of $26.39 included. So our true profit on this deal for owning it for 574 days was $619,740. So our LP investor, our limited partner, money partners, got as a profit $185,922 as a profit split. And the LP investors, the GP investors, ourselves, we made a profit of just under $500,000, $433,000. So again, we closed on this property on August 4th. It closed yesterday on February 28th. And so we owned this property for 574 days. So we figured out how much time that is per year. And so over the 17 months we owned it, where the investor got her full 8% payment annualized, it was $56,666. She got that deferred payments for those 24 days of the month. And then her profit split of $185. Then there was cash in the bank of $24,000 that we dispersed to her as well. And so her total return for the life of this deal was $269,228 for her investment of $500,000. So her ROI, she made 50% more on her money. So she made a little bit over 50%. So 53% is her ROI, but the IRR is the internal rate of return. That is how much she's made on the life of the deal. So based on how many essentially days or years, so that's 1.57. So in this time period of 1.57 years, she made a 34% IRR. That's a very great IRR. It is greater than we projected. Typically a lot of these times with us and other investors, we plan for a 5-year term, and we look to essentially have the investor make at least 18 to 20% IRR on their money over 5 years. And in 5 years time, they typically double their investment. On this property, there wasn't really too much add value left over for us to make a drastic increase in the returns. So we turned around, we sold the property, and because it's a shorter time period, it is a greater IRR, but overall it's a tremendous deal. They're making 34% on their money, and now we're looking to redeploy that money into other assets. So we did leave $10,000 in the bank account because after closing, we're gonna have other bills that come up. We're gonna have paying off the utility bills that haven't reached us yet, paying off our accountants, paying off our bookkeepers, filing taxes one more time, paying any attorneys that we need to pay to close off the LLC. So anything else, we always leave a little bit of money left in the account so we can make sure we cover all those other expenses. You don't want to disperse all this money. Some bills come in and now you're asking, everybody contribute some money to pay these final bills. So we left some money in the account. After all the bills are paid, these final funds will be dispersed. So this is some photos of the property, just to give you an idea of what we did to this property. It's very clean. There wasn't, like I said, a tremendous amount of add value that was work related. We just had to do some roofs. So we put a protective coating on the roofs to give it another 20 years of life. We redid some doors. We cut the trees back. So it really wasn't we fixed the gate operation systems. That's a new gate operator. We changed the keypad. We changed the software. We changed the systems, and we just did some marketing. That's all we had to do to increase the value, to double the value in less than 2 years. So these are like essentially it's like a big rehab, but it's very easy. So this is a way to, gotta look at opportunities and see where you can add value. And this one was a very simple add value. We paid a little bit more than we wanted. We saw that there was money on the table for us by just simply getting the seller and his family members that were utilizing some units out, and then just renting those units. It was about 12, 13 units in total that we got rented, and just raising the rents overall and automating it better and running it like a true business, that we were able to increase the income and increase the value in such a short time period and make great profits. So guys, on this deal, it was very simple. The add value was light. There wasn't really a ton of work. We found a good opportunity with a seller who left some meat on the table for us that was easily recognized and easily implemented with just a few changes in his business model and just running it like a business. So this can easily be done by you and anyone out there. You just got to identify the add value and take action. If you're out there and you're interested in learning how to get high rates of return on your dollars and be a part of opportunities like this in the future, you can go on my Instagram and DM me learn. It's alex.theinvestor.quezada, or just click the link below, vaultventures.net/join.